Hello, my name is Patrick Gill, a researcher with the Houston Education Research Consortium, also known as HERC. Today, I will be discussing findings from HERC's ongoing Career Technical Education, or CTE study. In particular, I will be sharing results about college enrollment among CTE graduates in the state of Texas. Today's presentation is part one of a five-part series exploring the post-secondary trajectories of CTE graduates in the state of Texas. This presentation will really be looking at the beginning of the college story. What does college enrollment look like for CTE graduates? Future presentations in this series will look more deeply into what happens during college, such as exploring the relationships between CTE programs and college majors, and looking at degree or credential attainment for CTE graduates. The series will conclude by bringing the college and workforce stories of the CTE study together and trying to paint a full picture of CTE graduates' post-secondary trajectories. Before I jump into findings, I want to share the background on our research questions and data. Today's presentation addresses three main research questions. One, is CTE related to college enrollment, and does this relationship differ across post-secondary institution types? Two, how soon after high school do CTE graduates enroll in college? And three, for CTE graduates, does college enrollment differ across CTE career clusters, and do the types of institutions graduates enroll in differ across career clusters? Based on graduate CTE engagement during high school, we have grouped them into two broad categories, CTE graduates and non-CTE graduates. CTE graduates are those who had the most CTE engagement during high school, either completing or concentrating in one career cluster, while non-CTE graduates had less engagement with CTE as a whole or with a single career cluster. About 2/3 of graduates in this study are classified as CTE graduates, so most graduates in Texas meaningfully engage with CTE during high school. We utilize several different data sources for our analyses, including Texas Education Agency PEIMS data, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board college enrollment and graduation data, National Student Clearinghouse data, and Texas Workforce Commission employment and wage data. Our data allows us to look at different groups of students depending on how far post-high school we are interested in. We have data on the year immediately following high school for all 7 of the graduating cohorts listed here. We have 3-year data for 5 of them, and we can look a full 6 years after high school for the 2014 and 2015 graduating cohorts. Now that you know more about our analyses and data, let's look at our key findings. Our high-level findings for this presentation are, first, CTE graduates were more likely to enroll in college within 6 years of high school graduation than non-CTE graduates, and of those who enrolled, they were more likely to do so at 2-year institutions than non-CTE graduates who enrolled. Second, over 90% of those who were ever going to enroll in college did so either during high school or in the academic year immediately following graduation. I'll speak more about the group that enrolled in college during high school in a few minutes, but it's worth noting that a full 1 in 3 high school graduates in Texas did so this is a common practice. And third, CTE graduates in the health science and STEM career clusters were more likely than others to enroll in college within 6 years of high school graduation, while those from the transportation career cluster were the least likely. Also, CTE graduates from the health science cluster were more likely than other CTE graduates to attend 4-year institutions. Now that we've seen some high-level findings, let's dive a bit deeper into each of them. One thing to keep in mind over the next several slides, when I discuss the breakdown of when and where graduates enrolled in college, I am looking only at those who ever enrolled. Graduates who never enrolled in college will be discussed briefly on the next slide, but the focus of this presentation is primarily on those who enrolled at some point. Overall, CTE graduates were more likely than their non-CTE peers to enroll in college within 6 years of high school graduation. Remember, we have up to 6 years worth of data available, which is why I'm using that as the endpoint. The finding shown here helps dispel the notion that CTE programs are quote-unquote vocational and steering graduates away from college. Rather, the graduates most engaged with CTE during high school are more likely to attend college than their peers who had less CTE engagement. Looking at what types of institutions graduates enroll in during the academic year immediately after high school graduation, we see some differences between CTE and non-CTE graduates. Overall, the majority of all graduates who enrolled did so at 2-year institutions, but we can see here that CTE graduates were more likely to have gone to a 2-year institution in the year right after high school. In fact, over half of CTE graduates who enrolled did so at 2-year institutions. Non-CTE graduates, on the other hand, were about equally likely to enroll in 2- and 4-year institutions immediately after high school. So although non-CTE graduates are less likely to enroll in college overall than CTE graduates, those who did so are more likely to enroll at four-year institutions. And finally, there's one more group of college students to discuss. More than 1 in 10 graduates who enrolled in college right after high school for both CTE and non-CTE graduates actually enrolled at multiple institution types within the same academic year. This does include students who enrolled at, say, a 2-year institution in the fall and transferred to a 4-year in the spring. However, most, nearly 2/3 of these students were enrolled in more than one institution type at the same time. So for example, these could be students taking classes at HCC and at U of H simultaneously, an arrangement which likely takes a significant amount of planning and know-how to successfully navigate. Interestingly, this group tends to be less economically disadvantaged and more white or Asian than graduates who enroll strictly at either 2- or 4-year institutions. We will discuss this group further when we explore degree attainment later in this presentation series, but I wanted to highlight them briefly here. Turning now to timing of college enrollment, almost all graduates who enroll in college within 6 years of high school graduation do so for the first time either during high school or in the year immediately following graduation. This was true of both CTE and non-CTE graduates. Less than 10% of all graduates who went to college at some point did so more than 1 year after they graduated high school. This indicates that graduates who don't engage with the post-secondary space early are very unlikely to ever do so. You'll notice that more than 1 in 3 graduates enrolled in college for the first time before they graduated high school. Who are those students, and what kind of schools were they enrolled in? Well, most of them, as you might expect, are enrolled in 2-year institutions while they're in high school for both CTE and non-CTE graduates. A not insignificant portion, though, did attend 4-year institutions or multiple institution types within the same academic year. This likely reflects graduates who enrolled in programs or courses at 4-year institutions in the summer following their high school graduation, because those students would be included with the academic year corresponding to their senior year of high school. Regardless, most students who engaged with college during high school did so at 2-year institutions, and the vast majority of them, 86% to be precise, continued in college in the academic year immediately following high school. In terms of college enrollment by CTE career cluster, we can see here that CTE graduates in the health science and STEM clusters were most likely to enroll in college at some point within 6 years of high school graduation, while those from the transportation career cluster were the least likely. In general, though, more than half of CTE graduates from all career clusters except transportation enrolled in college at some point, indicating that, regardless of CTE program, CTE graduates are engaged with the post-secondary space. Now let's zoom in on the top 5 career clusters in terms of enrollment and see what types of institutions those graduates attended. Here we see those top 5 career clusters statewide: business and marketing, health science, agriculture, food and natural resources, arts, AV technology and communications, and law and public service. These career clusters account for over 60% of all CTE graduates statewide. You can see that in general across career clusters, CTE graduates were most likely to first enroll in 2-year institutions. The one exception is the health science career cluster, where graduates were about equally likely to first enroll in 2- and 4-year institutions. That was a lot of information, so to recap our key findings. First, CTE graduates were more likely to enroll in college within 6 years of high school graduation than non-CTE graduates. And of those who enrolled, they were more likely to do so at 2-year institutions than non-CTE graduates. Over 90% of those who were ever going to enroll in college did so either during high school or in the academic year immediately following graduation. And third, CTE graduates in the health science and STEM career clusters were more likely than others to enroll in college within 6 years of high school graduation, while those from the transportation career cluster were the least likely. Also, again, CTE graduates from the health science career cluster were more likely than other CTE graduates to attend 4-year institutions. Thank you for joining today as we detailed our findings of CTE graduates enrolled in college in the year after high school graduation. Understanding what CTE and non-CTE graduates are doing in the year after high school is an important first step because it plays an important role in what students go on to do in college in terms of persistence, employment, and getting post-secondary credentials. We will detail findings related to the questions posed on this slide and more in our upcoming presentations as we try to build a complete picture of the post-secondary lives of our CTE graduates. Speaking of those upcoming presentations, again, today's presentation was the first of 5 exploring college engagement for CTE graduates. The next presentation, set to be released during the week of June 6th, will explore what happens while students are in college, namely, how is CTE career cluster related to the major students study and the fields of the degrees they earn? Thank you so much for listening today, and please don't hesitate to reach out with questions or comments.